It's just another Sharkman podcast.
Hello and welcome to Just Another Sharkman podcast. Your chance to plug into all the latest news, movies, and events in the Sharkman film franchise. My name's Jack. I'm here with Ferg, one of my best friends.
Hey.
And today we are... Well, it's been very hard, hasn't it? Get started on this.
So the last couple of days, we sort of did the podcast as normal the last couple of days. But obviously it's been difficult.
Yeah, and you might not have heard that when you were listening to us the last couple of days, but that's because we're really good at keeping up we're really good at pushing it all right down.
I think we kind of hadn't processed it yet as well. But we'd been thinking about, we didn't want to rush anything. We could have done something immediately, a couple of days ago. But anyway, we wanted to think about exactly how to do this.
I mean, me personally, Ferg, I've been finding it very hard. I've been drinking a lot of apple juice to kind of stay sharp.
You've been drinking a lot of apple juice.
And I think that now might be the time to just talk about it with the listeners, share it with the fans, because that's how I process things. Yeah. That's why I process tough things, by talking about it to a audience of millions. I find it harder to deal with it myself.
I think the best way to deal with things like this,
with personal kind of sorrow,
is with loads of people watching and listening
just
to
the
you.
whole time. Yeah.
And I think this whole thing is, it's about the podcast, and because as much as it's an issue for us, it's also an issue for you guys, and so we thought it'd be good to open up this dialogue with you. Obviously, there's no dialogue because you can't talk.
Don't talk about it. You can tweet in, but it'll be after this episode's gone live.
But it'll be hate mail mostly.
Yeah.
So anyway,
listeners, I won't skirt around this topic anymore. I'm going to get right to the point. Will, our friend and former co-host, has died.
Obviously, you guys have seen all about it in the news. And we'll sort of get into the details of what happened. What happened later.
It's not that we don't want to give you those Easter eggs.
Yeah.
It's that we want to process our grief first.
Yeah. And I think it's important that, like Jack says, these little Easter eggs, the sort of deeper lore as to the circumstances of our friend's death. I think that's something to say for a bit later. Sort of hook you in with our sort of grief and all of that, and then get into the sort of the good stuff, not the good stuff, So
listeners, today what we're going to be doing is using this episode to kind of process our feelings about Will. Obviously, we have some very complicated feelings about Will. Yeah. No doubt you guys do as well. He was a mass murderer. He did systematically and horribly kill a large group of people,
and he also hurt us.
And he did hurt us. He did run away at the time we needed him most. But he was also our friend. And he also started the podcast with us. And I think that we should be wrestling with both of those sides today. And whatever happens, I want to dedicate this episode to Will, Ferg.
That's a big part of it, yeah. Really dedicating this episode to Will, putting it on in his memory.
I think it's a time for somber reflection, Ferg.
Exactly. So I've got some quizzes lined up, some sort of trivia, things like that, some sort of top 10, some rankings, and Will. And it's like, if you're this, what are you that? And we're going to do that with you guys at home, some sort of like the Will challenge. I've got a couple of different versions of that. Just some really fun content, just sort of get us through it.
Ferg?
Yeah.
I'm really excited by that.
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
So
you can see me. I am really excited.
I've done a lot of work.
I'm smiling. I'm buzzing. I'm shaking a little bit. But just to say, there's this little voice in the back of my head, and I barely listen to it normally, but it's being quite loud right now.
Yeah.
And it's saying that that's inappropriate.
Oh, the little voice.
Yeah,
yes,
the
I
little
know what
voice.
you mean.
Yeah.
Yes, I used to have that little voice.
Oh, did you have it too?
Yeah.
What happened?
A few years ago, I was asleep one night.
Right.
I wasn't like asleep in bed. I passed out in the middle of a Sharkman marathon. Anyway, I was asleep. I was unconscious, and I had this dream where I was hearing the little voice, and then I was looking around this castle, hearing the voice, and then eventually I turned a corner and I saw this person, this person who had the voice. They were the.
What did they look like?
Oh, they looked like me, Jack. And I fought them, and I wrestled them to the ground, and I got some duct tape out, and I wrapped it around that mouth, and I said no. I said no. I said never again. I said you're not me.
That's a violent dream.
Yeah, so now I don't hear that little voice anymore.
So, Ferg, I'm not saying that those quizzes aren't great.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that your dreams shouldn't be violent. Mm-hmm. But what I am saying is that I think right now, why don't we think about Will as he was and talk about our memories about Will? I think that might be the best way to go forward. And I've been sleeping in the laundrette underneath all the jumpers.
Yeah.
And every night, Ferg, every night, and it fills me with a smile, is I'm thinking about the day that we met Will for the first time. Because obviously we remember that. And it's one of those things that we actually remember. So, I hold on to it. I clasp it desperately.
Yes.
We've gone into this before, listeners. Ferg and I, we don't remember who we were before we saw the first Sharkman film.
No.
We just have no memory of it. It's so silly and funny.
Basically our first memory is being in the cinema.
Yeah.
The title coming up, Sharkman 1. No, it was called Sharkman 1.
It was called Sharkman 1, yeah.
And we were sat next to each other, and we still don't know if we were friends before we went into the cinema, or if we were complete strangers who met there.
Yeah.
But we left, and we were like, that was... Well, our minds were buzzing with how good that film was.
And we looked into each other's eyes, and we said, we need to start a podcast about this.
So we were coming out of the screening, and we came out into the foyer, and there was this guy... stood at the pick and mix.
Oh, Ferg, you're making me sad.
And he was opening up each of the pick and mixes, and he was looking in, but not taking anything out, and he just kept looking at all of them and looking confused. And we were like, "Wow, this guy seems cool." So we went over to him,
and he looked at us, and he said, "Guys, have you noticed that there aren't any Sharkman sweets?" And I think, Ferg, you were the first to say, "Well, why would there be any Sharkman sweets? The first film just came out, and it hasn't really been a big hit."
No,
you said, "I loved the film personally, and I want to dedicate my life to it, but I don't think everyone does, and I doubt that they'd make Sharkman sweets at this point."
Yes, that's what I said. I was a different person then.
And I saw the pain in his eyes. And I think, Ferg, I was looking at you, and you were kind of getting a bit distressed that there weren't any either, even though you knew logically...
Now that he'd said it...
There shouldn't be any.
I wasn't convinced by myself.
So what I did was, I opened up the cola bottles tray.
Yeah.
I took it out. I took out a cola bottle.
Yeah.
I got my little scissors from my backpack, from my pencil case. And I cut a little shark mouth in the end of the cola bottle, so it looked like a little shark.
Yeah.
Then what I did was I got a jelly baby.
Classic.
I licked the jelly baby's hand.
Mm-hmm.
I licked a little bit of this cola bottle shark, and I stuck them together. And you know what? It looked like Sharkman holding a shark.
Just like in the film.
Just like in the film. And the relief in Will's eyes was just so visible.
To behold this thing made. And Jack made 2 more of those.
Yeah, I did.
And we took 1 each.
Yeah.
And we stood there in the foyer.
Mm-hmm. The light was shining through the roof.
And we'd been, this whole time while Jack was making this week, we've been talking about the film. We've been poring over it. We've been like, the bit where he throws the shark. The bit where he gets that shark and he chucks it. And the bit where he lobs that, what was it?
It was the shark.
It was a shark.
Yeah.
And we were like, this film is incredible. And we said to Will, look, Will, as soon as we were leaving that screening, Jack and I were saying, we should start a podcast about this film that we love. We should start a fan podcast.
We were.
And we said, Will...
This sounds crazy, Will.
But will you join us and make this podcast with us and be our best friend? And he said, he looked us both dead in the eyes.
I don't know how he did that.
I don't know how he did that because we were stood
but
about
he was
2 foot
smiling
apart from each other.
And he was happy and it was boyish glee.
And he said,
Absolutely. And then we lifted our Sharkman sweets into the air and then we ate them in unison. And, that became the bond. That became the symbol. We'd do that every day on the podcast. And we would never buy the new Sharkman sweets. We'd always make our own.
Until they outlawed that.
Yeah, until that was illegal.
Then we just started buying those.
They're not as nice.
No, but they're official. They're official.
Yeah.
And you buy, and it feels good to yes, on the one hand, it feels good to sort of put love and energy into something of your own.
Like handmade.
But on the other hand, it feels good to give money to Sharkman Studios. Anyway,
Where were we?
yeah, so that's how we met Will.
And it was the start of a beautiful friendship, really.
Yeah.
We started the podcast, we only had a couple hundred listeners, but as Sharkman Studios began to grow, so did the podcast, and it really took off. Ferg, I think one of the reasons we felt so drawn to him was that he provided a structure for us. He would just tell us what to do in a nice way, and we'd do it, and that was safe and nice and great. It was our idea, obviously, to do the podcast, but Will was really responsible for it all going so well.
And I think the thing with Will is there was that, when he talked, it was with such clarity and with such passion.
Yeah.
And this sort of strength in his eyes. And you would talk to him, and when you were talking to him, you would have the sense of almost fear, but excitement. No, not fear, excitement, really. And just this sense of anything is possible.
Yeah.
This guy can do anything, and I believe in him.
Yeah.
And by believing in him, I would believe in myself, and we would believe in us. And I think that's why people were drawn to him, and that was his energy.
No, I agree, and I don't think it was always that way, Ferg. I think he learned how to strike fear into your eyes. I think when we first met him, he was just an ordinary guy like you and me.
Yeah.
And it was great to watch him grow, because when we first met him, he was just a boyish fan that loved the films just like you and me. But as we stayed on the podcast together, he became more ruthless and more determined.
In his love for Sharkman.
In his love for
Ruthless
Sharkman.
in his love, yeah.
And I just loved watching that happen. And I think it was a real privilege to watch him learn how to be Will.
Yeah.
And Ferg, I do think, and maybe I shouldn't say this, maybe this is controversial. I do think that I wished we'd been with him when he died, even though the circumstances of his death were so appalling.
Yes, so let's get into what happened with Will. We had to talk about it at some point.
Yeah.
Obviously, listeners, you've probably seen at least the broad strokes of what's been going on in the news or on your Twitter moments.
Yeah, but the thing with the news, Ferg, is that you mustn't trust it.
No.
I've been thinking about this a lot, listeners, and just to give you my 2 cents on what I think's going on with the news.
Jack's 2 cents, here we go.
Is that you shouldn't trust it, because you should only trust Sharkman Studios, because you should only trust things that are written by people you love. I love Sharkman Studios.
Yeah.
I believe everything they say.
Oh, yeah.
The newspaper? Like, who even wrote that?
It doesn't say.
It doesn't mean it's true.
I don't think it might say on it, I don't know.
So let's just go into it, Ferg.
Yeah, so obviously about a month ago now, Will spectacularly escaped from prison, and we covered it live on the podcast.
Fantastic.
It was great. And then
and then he left, and then he didn't say bye to us or anything.
Yeah, that was a bit. But anyway, sorry.
Sorry.
Anyway, since then, he's been sort of spotted around the world. He'd been on the run from the police, from the law enforcement, and then a couple of days ago, they finally managed to track him down.
Yeah,
they found him. He'd sort of created a base of operations.
Yeah,
a hideout. He'd hollowed out the inside of a volcano.
I'd call it a studio.
Yeah, it's a sort of creative studio space.
Hideout, creative studio space.
It's like where he did his thinking and like
Anyway,
where he was doing his plans. So they managed to track him down.
Yeah.
They managed to get into this hollowed out volcano, and they found him.
Law enforcement kind of broke in. They ziplined down through the top of the volcano,
and they found him in this sort of like big sprawling
metal chamber.
He was hunched over a workstation.
Yeah.
And there were sort of plans everywhere. And he was scribbling on bits of paper.
There were like film cameras, there were robots, and there was ammunition.
And they said, "Put your hands in the air. You're under arrest."
Yeah.
They pointed their guns at him, and he turned around and he looked at them, and he just laughed.
Yeah.
And he was laughing. It was that classic Will laugh,
the classic
and
Will
that
laugh,
winning smile,
and it lasts for a long time.
So long, not uncomfortably long. It's nice.
It's nice. It's like a DLC of a laugh.
Just a bit more You think he'll
think
like
it's
laugh
over?
and you'll be like, oh, he's finished laughing.
Yeah.
And then just that little bit
No,
of DLC.
Yeah, a little bit of DLC, yeah. And what happened is that Will turned around, he looked at all these cops. He looked at all these cops with big guns, and he said, just try and shoot me. He was defiant as always. And what happened, listeners, was that they
shot him.
They shot him.
So they shot him in the chest a bunch of times.
Lots of times.
With guns.
Yeah.
And they shot him, and then he died.
I mean, what he was doing in there, I don't know. There might have been a couple different things.
I mean, there were so many different sort of evidence of different plans and different things he was working on. Mm-hmm. It's exactly what he was doing there and what it was he was planning to do in the future. And like, you know, if you look at all the evidence that's there, you know, there were several different theories about what it is he was trying to do. For example, you know, there was a giant drill.
Yeah.
So there's one theory that he was going to try and hollow out the earth, put a steering wheel in the middle and drive it around like a little car.
Another thing, he seemed to be working on a giant Botox machine that made people look like Sharkman characters.
Yeah, it was going to be like something, it went into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And then like released
all this
like
Botox.
rain, all this Botox, and then it would fall down and you'd be transformed to look like Prawn Boy, Lady Shark, and so on.
And you wouldn't have a choice.
No.
And I think, to me, that's the scary bit.
I know, I think it's like, it's a quality, you know?
Yeah. No, you are right, Ferg. That is a fair... I can't think of another way to do it.
No.
Otherwise, everyone would just be Sharkman. I would choose Sharkman.
I would choose Sharkman as
So
well.
I think everyone would choose Sharkman, and what a boring thing that would be.
I think it would be good if everyone was Sharkman. Because then, you would look at everyone and it'd be like...
Oh, you're Sharkman too.
And that'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Anyway, he had all this stuff going on.
Yeah, robots, guns, bombs, hacking. He had peace accords from a few different countries they seemed to be meddling with. Like, he'd taken them out of the cabinets and he was changing the words on them and was going to put them back in.
Yeah, he had lots of half-open piss crates lying around.
Yeah.
Just crates full of piss.
But Ferg, there is a positive to all of this, and I think we're forgetting it. When the police were searching through Will's multifarious, some might say evil plans,
Yes.
they came across one thing that redeemed him.
They did.
And we don't know exactly what it was. We know that the chief of the world police, she came out, she walked out of the base to the press, waiting outside, holding what looked like a film script. And she said to the press, all of this is horrible back there. You don't want to see any of it. It's all dangerous. It's all evil. I'm so glad we stopped him.
Yeah.
But this is one of the best things I've ever read. And I took screenwriting classes when I was 17, she said, just so you know.
Yeah. I could have been a screenwriter, she said, but I did, I didn't have the time.
And she said, this half makes me want to pardon him.
And she said, yes, Will did many bad things.
Yes.
But those are all in the past. And now he has sadly passed away from our many guns. And she said, this script represents what he could have been. The potential he had. And yes, if he had been alive, we would now have put him back into jail. And that's where he should have been. But in memory of this script, this example of his potential, we have decided to posthumously pardon him for all his crimes in honour of what he could have been.
And then what happened was quite extraordinary, Ferg, and it really made me smile. Because a little jet plane swooped down over the press conference as it began to hover there. You look up, it's the Sharkman CEO in the little jet plane. The top half of his torso and his head are sticking out of the plane because the plane is so small.
Yeah.
He's got his own mic that's louder than the mic that the chief of police is speaking into the press conference with.
Like so loud.
It's so loud. It's his own boombox, his own mic.
Yeah.
And he says...
He's got the mic in one hand and he's like holding up the speaker in the other hand.
And he says, R.I.P. Will.
R.I.P. a legend.
R.I.P. our continuity advisor.
R.I.P. the true representative of Sharkman fandom.
He says, love you, Will. Peace out in death. The world is poorer without you.
And also he was I don't know how he was doing this, because he does definitely only have 2 arms. But anyway, he was
Yeah.
also filming himself on Instagram Live.
Yeah.
And he said the work that you did as a fan, working on the podcast,
Yeah.
and then all that, that dedication you showed when the Darkswood, and then your work on these films. I was so lucky to be part of a company that worked with you. And I wish I could have worked with you closer, Will, when you were working on these films the last few months. You'll be missed.
And then he said, God, I look good today. Looking at himself in that Instagram video. He said, God, I look good.
He did.
And then he did a little kiss to the camera. And then what happened, Ferg? Really unexpected, really good twist.
Yeah.
He flew down and he snatched that script from the chief of police of the world. Yeah. And he flew off again into the distance. And then there was a little ding, there was a little star. Yeah. And he disappeared on the horizon.
And you thought she would be like, oh, God, he stole evidence. You thought she'd be pissed off.
You might be annoyed.
But she was just like, sort of shrugged her shoulders and was like, oh, kind of like, oh, what a scoundrel. Like, looked out at the press and was like, oh no, he stole the script.
Because let's be honest, Ferg, he can do what he likes.
He can do what he likes. It's all banter though, isn't it?
It's just all banter.
That's the thing, though.
Funny.
That's what I like about the Shaman Studios CEO, is that, like, even when he, like, does like something that's like like bad or terrible, it's like he sort of does that and it's like banter. It's like kind of ironic.
Yeah,
it's like kind of ironic.
It's kind of funny. Yeah,
he doesn't mean it. It's just banter.
He says what he thinks, and he does what he wants, and you can't apologise for that.
Exactly. And since his speech out there, and since Will's death, there's been such a big outpouring of love from the fan community and from not even necessarily people who are part of the fan community.
I'm really quite staggered by it.
It's been beautiful.
Yeah.
And people...
We've been getting a load of retweets, regrams.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been good for the numbers.
Really good for the numbers.
And, people talking about what a dedicated fan he was and what he represented to fandom. He represented that sort of... that obsession and that commitment and that being willing to do anything to get what you want from the fan property that belongs to you.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Fred, because Sharkman's CEO, he's so banter, he's so laid back, he does what he likes. He's fun, he's relaxed.
Yeah.
But Will is just sort of the complete opposite in a way. It's kind of like a yin and yang, because Will, he's so ruthless, determined and angry.
But he's still got that sort of boyish charm.
Yeah, you're
and that
right.
winning
You're
smile.
Right. You're right.
And I think he's like the CEO in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I respect them both so much. And why it's such a shame, like the CEO said, that they never got to work with each other.
I know. It's a shame, isn't it?
And with this outpouring of love, listeners, even a lot of his haters from before.
A lot of the trolls whose family were murdered by him.
Yeah, the grieving widows and so on.
The grieving trolls.
In the past, they'd always been like, he's bad, he killed a member of my family. When he got made continuity advisor to Sharkman Studios, they were like, this mass murderer should not be responsible for the production of blockbuster films.
And it's like, shut up, anyone can be anyone. It's equality.
But now, they've come out and said, you know what? We were wrong. I was wrong about that. And so many of them have been saying, I wish I could have seen more films from him. I wish I could have seen what he could do because I was wrong about him. And I realise that now. And I realise how important he was for this community.
It's amazing what death does, really. It does, in a way, scrub out everything you thought was bad.
Yeah, because if you do a bad thing and then you die, it's like, it doesn't matter.
No, you just remember the good thing.
Yeah.
Because it's respectful and it's kind.
And if you hurt people, if you hurt someone, or if you hurt lots of people or millions of people, and then you pass away, I'm pretty sure once you're dead, I'm pretty sure they're not hurt anymore. I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
No, that is how it works.
Once you pass away, the people stop feeling bad.
Yeah, because it's called respect.
It's just called respect.
I miss Will Ferg. I really miss him.
Yeah, the more
we're talking about,
like you're saying, it's so many weird, because he did abandon us, and
he did do some bad things, but.
And we felt so used by him, but it's like, I'm still not quite sure what to think, Jack.
No, I feel maybe he was still processing it, Ferg.
Yeah, but anyway, regardless of what it is we ultimately feel, we're doing this episode for him. And if there's one thing Will loved, it was ads for merch.
It was ads for merch.
So here's an ad for some merch.
Do you love Sharpman? Well, why not get the new Sharpman needle? It's just a very thin little needle, little metal needle, and it's got a tiny, tiny picture of Sharpman's face down the side. Just a very thin needle, very sharp metal needle. And all you gotta do, you just gotta take that needle, just put it in the top of your head, just pop it onto the top of your skull, and just slide it in, just push it into the top of your head, just slide it down, and it's very thin, so thin, very thin needle, so thin you won't even feel it. The thinnest needle in the world, and you won't even feel it's there. Very thin, but very long, very long. Take it, top of your head, just slide it into your head, so long but so thin you won't even know. Why have you got to put it in your head? Why you got to stick the Sharpman needle down in your head? Don't ask, don't even think about it. You won't even need to worry about it. Just take the needle and push it in down, so far down, until it disappears and you can't see it anymore, and you'll never see it again. And you'll never think about it again because you won't even feel it's there. So thin, it's such a thin needle, but such a long needle. It's £3. Sharpman needle.
Ferg, that ad has cheered me right up. I love thinking about buying stuff. I love thinking about throwing the money at the studio, buying the junk, and just keeping it in my house. Do you think the same?
Yeah, and it makes me think of Will. He had so much shit in his house.
He had so many things.
You'd go into one of his rooms and there would just be merch just everywhere.
Stacked. It's worse than yours.
Nailed
It's
to
worse
the
than
walls,
your house.
worse than mine.
Yeah,
And you wouldn't think that was possible. If you saw mine, you would not think that was possible. But it's worse than mine.
Yeah. Obviously, it all got impounded when he was sent to prison.
Yeah.
Ferg, I was talking to Y2K Janice the other day.
Oh, right, yeah.
When I found out Will died, I went round and I told her how I was feeling, and then we watched some Prawn Boy films, we looked at some Prawn Boy memes. We're just really good mates now.
Nice.
She said that the best way to deal with grief like this...
Oh, of course, because her whole family died in Y2K, right?
Yeah, she has a lot of experience with it because
Yeah.
her entire family died in Y2K.
That's
in
why she's called
2000.
Y2K Janice, isn't
That
it?
is
That
why
is,
she's called
I forget
Y2K
that.
Janice, which
Yeah.
isn't a very fair nickname, but she likes it.
Do you remember Y2K?
Yeah, I remember Y2K.
I've got vague memories of
Like, I
Y2K.
don't remember it actually happening. But I remember a feeling.
the
I
sense of
remember
like,
a
oh
fear.
my god.
Because it was the numbers, wasn't it? It didn't
the
go
numbers
to
broke.
2000, so then
Yeah,
just everything went wrong.
Man, what a weird... Because then obviously... And now... Anyway, sorry, carry on.
But then the Sharkman films came out and it was fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, she said that the best way to kind of move through this grief was to talk about him.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what you and I are doing really well right now, and I think it's brave, and I think it's hard. And I just want to say well done, Ferg.
Well done to you, Jack. And well done to me, Ferg.
And well done to me, Jack.
And well done to you, listeners.
For listening.
I know it's hard.
Now, Ferg, I was doing a little think about all of the new listeners that we've gained in the last year. You know, listeners around the world, possibly even listeners in different timelines.
That would be weird.
And what I thought we should do is... I thought we should talk about him and his work on the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you listeners knew him. And also, it'd be interesting for some of you new listeners who we've picked up in the last year who never heard him on the podcast. Obviously, all the old episodes are now behind a paywall, so some of you still won't have heard him.
Now, what was fun about Will is, we mentioned this before, but he could do all the voices. He could do all the accents. He could do his Sharkman voice.
Yeah.
He could do other bits and bobs. He could do Prawn Boy. He could do Beach Dog.
And
it was really funny.
It was really the energy behind the podcast for a while. And I think it took us a while to sort of get used to doing the pod without him because he was such a big presence.
Exactly. Sometimes he was like really happy and loud and excited. And other times he was just so cross and intense and loud.
And it all played really well, though.
No, it really did. You could follow everything.
And I think particularly with that energy and with the voices he would do, you know, he was really made for podcasting and for showing his love of Sharkman. And sometimes, when I've been feeling really down on myself since he left, sometimes I feel like the podcast used to be so dynamic and really worked as this sort of, audio product. And since then, it's now just two people just like talking. I mean, just talking. It's just like flat and bland. And it's just like two blokes just chatting. And it's just the same voices. I mean, I know I'm being harsh on myself, but you know what I mean? It's like, that's what it feels like when he's gone because he was such a presence.
Yeah, I know what you feel, Ferg, because I sometimes feel that maybe it's just two people repeating the same stuff, like two people just doing boring things, saying boring flat
No,
things.
exactly. And that's the thing. I feel like sometimes it's just like two people just like talking and we're just like saying the same.
No,
and
I
it's
know
just,
exactly
like, the same
what
two
you
voices.
mean. I have felt this before. It's just two people that are sort of similar, talking about the same feelings, and talking about the
exactly,
same
and it is just like just two. It's just like two, and and they're just talking, and it's like and kind of
so true.
It's sort of it's kind of
Hashtag
really
so true.
Sometimes it's like they're not even saying anything.
Ferg, just popped into my head right now.
Yeah.
Instead of talking about what Will was like, why don't we show listeners what Will was like? Let's play them a clip from an old episode.
Well, Jack, I'm afraid to say for legal reasons, we still can't actually play Will's voice.
Oh, they were used as evidence, weren't
But we
they?
can. I mean, I could play it and just bleep it out, even to get them an impression.
Yeah, let's do that. Just a little impression. Okay, guys. Ferg, and you know what? Don't even select it. Just pick a random clip.
Yeah,
just choose something and whack it on there.
Just a sort of normal us chatting, just the normal sort of banter you'd get.
Hope you enjoy, guys.
Yeah, here it is.
Oh, Will, you're always saying that.
Oh my god, yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's just like in Sharkman 2, isn't it? Where
yeah, it is.
yeah, exactly. And it's like Sharkman is like so cool, and it's what? Yeah, sorry, no, Will, you are right. No, yeah, no, sorry, I should. Sorry, listeners. Yes, Will. Absolutely, Will.
Yes, sir.
I agree.
Yes, I will stop drinking the apple juice.
Anyway, so. Oh, sorry, you were talking. So, listeners, we just came back from the new Sharkman film.
Dark Squid! Dark Squid. He's dark. He's a squid.
And I think it was a pretty good one. I had a good time.
Really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was good.
First impressions. Will, what did you think? Bit harsh.
Yeah, but you wouldn't really do that, would you?
Oh, no, yeah, I guess you're right.
If that's what you think, then that's what you think, and I guess I think it too. I miss him, Ferg.
Yeah. Yeah, listening to that made me really miss... It felt like he was here.
And I just want to quickly clarify for the listeners. We got a few DMs over the last couple of days asking, is he really dead?
Yes.
Has he really died? Is it another kind of ploy? Is it another strange gambit?
And we were sort of thinking that too, but listeners, we were actually called in to identify the body.
Yeah.
And when we were on our way to the morgue,
we were really excited.
Because we were like, oh, I bet it's going to be a thing where you can't tell it's him, and it's like, they haven't found the body.
Yeah.
And it'll be on the news like they never found the body,
Yeah.
and it's like,
we really went down that thought path very hard.
Yeah.
And it was really difficult when we went in the room and you could see his face.
It was very clearly him.
It was very difficult.
Because he'd been shot a lot, but none of it was in the face.
No.
So his body just fucked, but it was definitely him.
It was definitely his face, yeah.
And he was definitely dead. That thing we saw on the slab, there was no way that could support any life.
And then we had to carry out his last wishes.
Yes. What he wanted to be done with his remains was he wanted to be buried at sea.
Just like the infamous Dr. Clock at the end of Dr. Dinosaur 2.
Yeah.
Blub, 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 bottom of the sea. And Ferg, it's funny that we did think he was alive.
Yeah.
That we did go to the morgue thinking he might be still alive and he might get up. Because, well, he was just this force of nature, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was so determined and he never quit. And even though it's a touchy subject, and I know earlier this year we weren't really even supposed to talk about it, but I think it's okay now. Those murders...
You really saw his dedication to his work and to the fan community in his own way, in that string of murders.
It was a long, long list. And he completed it all. He 100%ed it.
Yeah. He never half-assed anything. On the podcast, and when he was murdering people who worked on a movie.
Yeah.
He was always giving it his all.
And, Ferg, some of those murders really make me laugh now, thinking about it.
Yeah.
Thinking about how he had to keep it secret, he had to keep it all hush-hush. Yeah. He murdered one of the gaffers in the recording studio. And we came in, and he had to hide him under a pillow.
Yes.
And there was this blood seeping out, and we were like, what's this blood? And he said it was a goat, and we were all like, fine, okay.
Yeah.
And then... You know, and then he cooked it to prove it was a goat,
And
and we ate it. Now we're on this. What was your favourite murder, Ferg?
gosh, I mean, there's so many. I mean, obviously, one of the ones...
If he did them.
I think we've established that he did them. For better or worse, well, I think he did them. But, yeah, for me, I think one of the ones that got a lot of attention in the press at the time. Obviously, most of the murders were he would go to people's houses, track them down, or in the street and kill them in an alleyway, or go to their place of work.
He'd make sure he'd talk to them first before he killed them.
Yeah, he wanted them to know why and what was happening.
Yeah.
But in general, it was hunting people down one at a time over a protracted length of time and killing them. But of course, there was that one event where he killed
the 20%.
20% of
the 20%
the cast and crew at once. What he did, of course, listeners, and again, I think this just shows such planning and such dedication to his craft. What he did is he rung up a load of the cast and crew members of Dark Squid with the phone of somebody he'd killed. And he put on their voice. So good at voices.
So good at accent.
And he said, "Hey guys, it's me. I was thinking we should do a little get together, a little reunion. Come round to my house." And of course, Will had occupied the house. Come round to my house. It's this big Gothic house in the middle of nowhere. Come round and we'll have a little reunion. It'll be great to see you all. And so he put that out, and they showed up to the house.
Yeah.
And the door was slightly ajar.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And then they came in and they were looking for the person they were expecting, and there was no one there.
They all gathered in the dining room by candlelight.
And there was a cake there. And they were like, "Oh, this is a cake,
Cool.
It's a celebratory cake." And written in icing in the top of the cake, it said, "Dark Squid sucks," with an X.
And what was fun is that then they tried to leave. And the door was locked.
The door was locked.
It was like, great twist, first of all.
And all the windows shut.
And they heard this voice, and he'd installed all of these little speakers around the house.
Yeah.
And he spoke to them, and he said, "You will never leave. Welcome to hell."
And then over the course of the night,
Yeah.
he proceeded to, sort of prowl around the house.
Dressed up as different Sharkman characters.
And taking them out in various ways. And it was this whole, instead of just like one event, normally it's just one event at a time. One murder.
Yeah.
But this was this whole sort of elaborate theatrical event.
Full of traps and holes and poison.
And big spikes coming out of walls.
Yeah.
And sometimes he would chase them down a corridor with
And sometimes
a knife.
he'd do this fun thing where he was like, "Oh, you can escape." He'd pretend to be another member of the beat, and he'd be like, "You can escape, you can get out." And they would follow his instructions. They would kill other members of the cast and crew to save themselves, and they would still die at the end.
Yeah. At the end, they would finally get to the final door, and they'd be like, "This is it, we're out." And then he would turn around and he would say, "Fuck you, that was such a bad film. You ruined everything that's good about Sharkman. Fuck you. What do you think?" And then he would shoot them in the face.
Yeah. Oh, Will.
Oh, Will.
You know, it's funny talking about it on the podcast, because usually we're not allowed.
No,
but now he's dead, it's...
I think the reason we thought of it as such a, taboo thing is just because we didn't talk about it. But now we talk about it, it's not like... In the past, we were sort of like, "Oh, Will our friend, and the Will who did these things."
Doesn't seem like the same person.
And there was that contradiction there. But now, when we talk about it, it's like, it's classic Will. And
That's
it's like...
exactly what he would do.
It's... Everything he did then and the reasons he did it and how he did it are exactly why we love him, and exactly why he was such a good fan, and exactly why he was so important to the community.
I love Will.
Yeah. No, I do love him, and I will always love him. And I will always remember him.
Are we... Sorry, just had a silly thought.
What? No.
We're not bad fans, are we?
What do you mean, bad fans?
Well, I was just thinking about Will and those murders.
Right.
And going above and beyond, in a way, to prove how much he loves Sharkman and to prove what he'd do for the franchise.
So what are you saying, Jack?
I'm saying that we were upset when he left us alone.
Yeah.
But what if we were the ones that weren't good enough? What if he was showing us by example what a good podcaster does, and we didn't listen, Ferg? What if we didn't heed the example?
We weren't good enough for him, were we?
We weren't good enough.
We've not been dedicated fans. I mean, yes, we make this podcast every day, and yes, this is how I spend my whole life. But I can always do more. You can always do more.
And I'm not saying let's murder everyone.
No.
Then we go to prison.
And then we can't make a podcast.
But let's do this podcast harder.
You know what, Jack? You're right. Mm-hmm. Maybe we disappointed him while he was alive.
Yeah.
And we'll have to live with that.
Yeah.
But what we can do is honour his memory and be the people he wouldn't have abandoned. We can be the people he wouldn't have been disappointed in. We can be the friends to him and the friends to the whole community, the representatives of fandom that he was and that we could have been. And that if we'd been that while he was alive, maybe he'd still be alive. And maybe the three of us would have still been working together.
You're right, Ferg. You know what I'm going to do right now?
What?
I'm going to Google the address of the prom boy actor and I'm going to stalk him. What are you going to do right now to prove that you loved him?
I'm going to hire a massive hot air balloon.
Yes.
With my ranking of the Sharkman films written down the side, and I'm going to release it over the country.
That's brilliant, Ferg. And then at 4 p.m, we're going to meet up, we're going to get snacks, and we're going to shout at people on the street. We're going to shout at people on the street that the best Sharkman film is Sharkman 8. I don't even know what the best Sharkman film is, but I'm going to shout.
It doesn't matter. It's just shouting. It's all that matters.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
This has been Just Another Sharkman podcast, starring Jack Bradfield as Jack and Fergus Macdonald as Fergus. Music and editing by Fergus Macdonald. Artwork by Niamh Simpson. Tune in again for more Sharkman news tomorrow. And the day after that. And the day after that. And the day after that.